To find the area or probability of a normal curve, we use the z-score formula x minus mu divided by sigma. So let's look at some examples. The International Club for Tall People is an organization for only tall people. It requires that men be at least 74 inches tall and women be at least 70 inches tall. And for the sake of this question, we're going to assume that men's heights are normally distributed with a mean of 69 inches and a standard deviation of 2.8. And we're going to assume that women's heights are normally distributed with a mean of 63.9 inches and a standard deviation of 2.5 inches. So what percentage of men can meet the requirements for this club? So we need to go in there and figure out, first off, what our mean and standard deviation are for men. So that's what the first question is asking, is about men. Well, we know that the mean, mu, is 69. And we know that the standard deviation, sigma, is 2.8. All that says that right here. Now, we need to find something specific, and it wants to know what percentage of men meet the requirements for the club, given that men have a mean and standard deviation of this. Well, it says that men have to be at least 74 inches tall. So our x value has to be greater than or equal to 74. Now that we have everything there, we can just plug it into our z-score formula. So z equals 74 minus 69 divided by 2.8. And that is going to give us 1.79 as the z-score. Now we got to find the area or the probability or percentage of this. Now our x value is greater than or equal to 74. That means we want everything from 1.79 and going to the right. We want it to be more than that. So I'm going to use the calculator, and we're going to go to normal CDF. So when we get to normal CDF, we have to type in our lower bound and our upper bound. In this case, our lower, as low as we can go, is going to be 1.79, and our upper is going to be some arbitrarily large number. So we can just say 9999, and that'll be good enough. For those who have a TI-84, it's going to prompt you for mu and sigma, but you can just leave those as 0 and 1. But if you have a TI-83, like what we're going to be using here, it's not going to prompt you for mu and sigma. It's just going to ask you for the bounds. So second vars and normal CDF do not do PDF at all. It's CDF. It's going to prompt you. So we'll put in 1.79, comma 9999. And again, if you have an 84, it'll tell you lower bound and upper bound, or lower and upper. And then you'll just hit paste for an 84, but for the TI-83, you'll just close the parentheses and hit enter. And it's going to give you this. So it's going to give you 0.0367. And since it wants a percentage, we're going to convert our number, our decimal, into a percentage. So we're going to multiply by 100 or just move the decimal place over 2 spots. When we do that, we're going to get 3.67%. So the probability, or what percentage of men will fit this requirement, 3.67%. Now let's go again for the next one, but this time it's going to be for women. And again, we need to know our mean and standard deviation. We know our mean from before is 63.9, and our standard deviation is 2.5. Now, what's the requirement for women? Well, women had to be at least 70 inches. So our x value here is going to be greater than or equal to 70. And now we plug it into our z-score formula. So z equals 70 minus 63.9 divided by 2.5. And when we run that through, we're going to get a z-score of 2.44. And again, we want the women that will fit this, so it has to be, like we said over here, greater than or equal to 70. So we're going to use 2.44 as our z-score, and we're going to find everything from 2.44 going to the right. So again, normal CDF, 2.44 to 9999. And again, we're just going to use our calculator and plug it in. So again, we're going to go back to second and vars, normal CDF, and we're going to put in our number, 2.44, comma, 9999. And we're going to get 0.0073. 0.0073. And again, we need the percentage. So we're going to move the decimal place over 2 spots to get our decimal to a percentage, which is going to give us 0.73%. So 0.73% of women meet the requirements for this club. Now, let's look at the last part here. If a height requirement were to be made so that only the tallest 5% of men could join, what would the new minimum height requirements be? Well, this time we're going to need to find our x value. So again, we already know our mean and standard deviation for men. Our mean is 69, and our standard deviation is 2.8. But now we have to find z, since the only way to find the new minimum height requirement is to solve for x. So we got to find out what z is. And so we want the tallest 5%. So what we're going to do is in our calculator, we're going to go to inverse norm and find the z-score that corresponds to the tallest 5%. But the only way to do that is to know what the bottom percent is. So we need everything underneath 5%. So we're going to find what's underneath 5%, which is the bottom 95. So we're going to convert 5% and do that as 1 minus 0.05 to get 0.95. And now we're going to find the inverse norm of this. So again, we're going to use our calculator to make it a little bit easier. So second and vars and number 3 inverse norm. And what we're going to do is we're going to type in 0.95 like so. But if you happen to have a TI-84, it's actually going to ask you for the area, which is not too bad. It's the same thing what we're going to type in here. We just leave mu and sigma alone. You just type in 0.95 for the area. And then we just close, hit enter, and we're going to get 1.6448. So rounded 2, I'm going to say 1.64. And that will be our z-score. And now we plug it into the z-score formula to find out what x is. So now we just go and put it in. So 1.64 equals x minus 69 over 2.8. And we're going to multiply the 2.8 over to the 1.64. So 1.64 times 2.8, and we're going to get 4.592 equals x minus 69. And then we're going to add the 69 over. So 4.592 plus 69 is going to give us 73.592. That'll be x. So I'm not going to use this as the height requirement. I'm going to do a little bit of rounding. So I'm going to say that the tallest 5% of men, I'm going to just say that it is, the height requirement will need to be 73.6 inches as the new minimum height requirement.